The fluorescent lights in Dr. Harrison's office felt too bright, too harsh. I sat in the stiff leather chair, my hands gripping the armrests as the doctor closed his office door and turned to face me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not concern. Not sympathy. Something closer to anger. "Mrs. Thompson, I need you to call the police," he said quietly. Those 6 words made no sense. I brought my husband Derek to the hospital for his routine checkup, just like I'd done every month for the past 5 years. Same hospital. Same doctor. Same wheelchair I'd pushed through these corridors so many times I could navigate them with my eyes closed. "I don't understand," I whispered. Dr. Harrison sat down across from me, his jaw tight. "Your husband isn't paralyzed, Naomi?" "He never was." The room tilted. The walls seemed to breathe. I heard my own voice from very far away asking him to repeat what he'd said, but I already knew I'd heard him correctly. My mind was already racing backward through 5 years of my life like a movie on fast forward. 5 years of lifting Derek's body from bed to wheelchair. 5 years of bathing him, feeding him, helping him with every basic human function. 5 years of working from home at my computer late into the night to afford his medical bills while he lay in our bedroom watching television. 5 years of canceled plans, abandoned dreams, and a social life that had withered to nothing. 5 years of lies. How do you know? My voice cracked. Dr. Harrison pulled up a video on his tablet and turned it toward me. The footage was grainy, black and white, time-stamped from 3 nights ago. It showed the hospital hallway on the 4th floor. And there, walking normally down that hallway with smooth, easy strides, was my husband, Derek. Walking. Not shuffling or stumbling like someone relearning after years of paralysis. Walking like someone who had never stopped. He turned a corner and the camera angle switched. Now I could see him entering a room. Room 412. I knew that room. It was where they kept the physical therapy equipment after hours. The video continued. 2 minutes later, a woman entered the same room. I recognized her immediately. Vanessa Torres, Derek's physical therapist. The woman who'd been coming to our house 3 times a week for the past 5 years. The woman I'd paid, thanked, trusted. My stomach turned to ice. "There's more," Dr. Harrison said gently. He fast-forwarded through the footage. Now I was watching the same hallway the next morning when Derek's wheelchair came into view with me pushing it. I saw myself carefully helping Derek from the chair to the examination table, supporting his weight, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Derek's face was convincingly blank, his body limp. But the Derek on that screen knew exactly what he was doing. I noticed some inconsistencies in his muscle tone during the last few examinations, Dr. Harrison explained. His muscles shouldn't be this developed after 5 years of complete paralysis, even with physical therapy. So I checked the security footage. "Naomi, he's been walking around this hospital for years. After your appointments, before you arrive, whenever he thinks no one's watching." I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. "There's something else." Dr. Harrison pulled out a folder. I reviewed his original medical records from the accident. His injury was real, but it was minor. Soft tissue damage, some bruising. Nothing that would cause paralysis. Nothing that would have kept him in a wheelchair for more than a few weeks at most. The neurological tests we ran 5 years ago showed completely normal function. But he couldn't move. After the accident, he couldn't walk. I saw it. He chose not to walk, Dr. Harrison corrected. I believe he saw an opportunity and took it. The question is why. I knew why. Even as my mind rejected it, my heart knew. The pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. Derek had always been lazy, always looking for shortcuts. Before the accident, he'd been complaining about his job, about responsibilities, about how life was too hard. Then the car accident happened, minor rear-ending on the highway, and suddenly he had an escape route. "Vanessa," I said numbly. "The therapist." "I suspect they've been involved for quite some time," Dr. Harrison said carefully. "I've reported her to the medical board. But Naomi, your husband has been committing fraud. Disability fraud, insurance fraud, and what he's done to you. I'm not a lawyer, but this is criminal. You need to call the police." I stood up on shaking legs. "I need to see him. He's in the waiting room." "But Naomi, please think about this carefully." I was already walking to the door. My body moved on autopilot down the hallway, past the nurse's station where I'd chatted pleasantly so many times, past the waiting area where other patients sat in real wheelchairs with real injuries. Derek sat in his wheelchair by the window looking at his phone. He glanced up when he saw me, his face arranging itself into that familiar helpless expression I'd seen every single day for 5 years. "Hey babe, everything okay?" You look upset. I stared at him. Really looked at him. His arms were strong, muscular. His legs, positioned carefully on the footrests, showed definition through his sweatpants. This wasn't the body of a paralyzed man. This was the body of someone who moved, who exercised, who lived a full physical life when I wasn't watching. We need to go home, I said flatly. Something flickered in his eyes. Concern? Fear? But he recovered quickly, nodding and reaching for the wheelchair controls. I stopped him. I'll push you, I said. Like always. As I gripped the handles of that wheelchair and pushed my lying husband toward the parking lot, I felt something inside me shift. The woman who had walked into this hospital 3 hours ago no longer existed. That woman had been a devoted wife, a caregiver, a person who believed in the sanctity of marriage vows. That woman had sacrificed everything for the man she loved. But that woman was gone. In her place was someone new. Someone who'd been forged in the fire of betrayal. Someone who understood that the past 5 years of her life had been stolen. Someone who was going to get them back. I loaded Derek into the car with mechanical precision, folded the wheelchair, secured it in the trunk. I drove home through familiar streets that now looked foreign. Every landmark we passed reminded me of something I'd missed. The gym where Derek claimed he couldn't do physical therapy anymore. The park where I used to jog before I became too exhausted from caregiving. The restaurant where we'd had our last real date before the accident. All lies. All of it. Derek tried to make conversation during the drive, but I didn't respond. I could feel him watching me nervously. Good. Let him be nervous. When we arrived home, I helped him from the car to the wheelchair. Helped him up the ramp I'd had installed at great expense. Helped him through the door of the house I'd modified with grab bars and widened doorways. The house that had become a prison for both of us, except only one of us had been trapped. Naomi, seriously, what's wrong? Derek asked as I positioned his wheelchair in the living room. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady now. Crystal clear thoughts formed in my mind with perfect precision. Nothing's wrong, I said. I'm just tired. You should rest then. I'll be fine here. I'll be fine. As if he needed my care. As if he hadn't been fine this entire time. Actually, Derek, I think I'll go out for a while. Visit my sister. I haven't seen Simone in months. Oh. He looked uncertain. Should I call Vanessa? See if she can come by? No, I said sharply. Then softer, no, I'm sure you'll be okay for a few hours. I grabbed my purse and keys. At the door, I turned back to look at him one more time. He sat in that wheelchair, the picture of helplessness, his face showing just the right amount of concern for his tired wife. Derek. Yeah. I love you. The words tasted like poison, but I needed to say them. Needed him to believe everything was still normal. His face softened. I love you too, babe. Drive safe. I closed the door behind me and stood on the porch for a moment, breathing in the cool afternoon air. Then I got in my car and drove. Not to Simone's house, though I would go there eventually. First, I drove to the police station Dr. Harrison had recommended. The one with a detective who specialized in fraud cases. I had the medical records Dr. Harrison had given me in my purse, along with the security footage on a flash drive. As I walked through the police station doors, I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago. Naomi Thompson, graphic designer with a promising career and a full life ahead of her. I thought about the woman I'd become. Naomi Thompson, nurse, maid, prisoner. And I thought about the woman I was going to be. Naomi Thompson, survivor. The revenge would be sweet. But first, I needed to build my case. I sat across from Detective Morrison in a small interview room that smelled of coffee and old files. She was a woman in her mid-50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that I immediately appreciated. I just finished telling her everything, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Mrs. Thompson, she said, tapping her pen against her notepad, what you're describing is serious fraud. Disability fraud, insurance fraud, possibly more. But I need you to understand something. Cases like this take time to build. We'll need evidence, documentation, witnesses. I have evidence. I pushed the flash drive across the table. Security footage from the hospital showing him walking. Medical records proving his injury wasn't severe. 5 years of disability payments he received under false pretenses. Detective Morrison plugged the drive into her computer and watched in silence. Her expression hardened as Derek strolled across the screen, as natural as breathing. When Vanessa appeared in the footage, the detective's eyebrows rose. The physical therapist, I explained. She's been treating him 3 times a week for 5 years. I paid her over $60,000. And you believe they're romantically involved? I know they are. I pulled out my phone and showed her the phone records I'd requested from our carrier during my drive over. Hundreds of calls between Derek's number and Vanessa's. Text messages sent while I was at work, during my rare outings in the middle of the night when Derek claimed he couldn't sleep. Detective Morrison studied the records carefully. This is good, Naomi. This is very good. But I need to ask you something difficult. How do you want to proceed? Sometimes in cases like this, spouses choose not to press charges for personal reasons. I want him prosecuted, I said without hesitation. I want everyone to know what he did. She nodded slowly. Then we'll need to be strategic. Right now, he doesn't know you're aware of his deception. That gives us an advantage. I recommend you go home, act normal, and let us conduct our investigation. Can you do that? Could I? Could I go home and continue the charade, helping him from wheelchair to bed, preparing his meals, maintaining the fiction that had consumed 5 years of my life? Yes, I said. I can do that. Good. In the meantime, I'll start pulling together everything we need. Bank records, medical files, insurance claims. We'll interview Dr. Harrison and review more security footage. I'll also look into Vanessa Torres's background. If she's been facilitating this fraud, she's complicit. I left the police station as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Colors I hadn't really noticed in years because I'd been too busy, too tired, too trapped. My next stop was Simone's apartment across town. My younger sister opened the door in her bright red yoga pants and white tank top, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. When she saw my face, her smile vanished. Naomi? What happened? I walked inside and collapsed onto her couch. The whole story poured out of me in a rush. Simone listened with growing horror, her hand covering her mouth. That sorry piece of... She caught herself. Naomi, I never liked him. You know that. But this is evil. I need your help, I said. The police want me to act normal while they investigate. I can't do this alone, Simone. I can't go home and pretend everything is fine. You won't be alone. She sat beside me and took my hand. Tell me what you need. We stayed up late that night planning. Simone was a paralegal at a law firm downtown. She had connections, resources, knowledge about how these cases worked. More than that, she had the fire I needed to keep going. First thing tomorrow, I'm calling Attorney Brooks, she said. She handles fraud cases and she's brilliant. You'll need a civil lawyer in addition to the criminal case. Derek's going to owe you, Naomi. Big time. I don't want his money, I said quietly. I want my life back. You'll get both. I drove home near midnight. The house was dark except for the glow of the television in the bedroom. I found Derek exactly where I'd left him, in his wheelchair by the bed, watching some action movie. Hey, he said, muting the TV. I was getting worried. Long visit with Simone? We had a lot to catch up on. I began my nightly routine, the one I could perform in my sleep. Helping him to the bathroom. Helping him change into pajamas. Transferring him to the bed. Arranging his pillows just right. Every touch made my skin crawl now, but I kept my face neutral. You seem distant, Derek observed as I pulled the blanket over him. Just tired? It's been a long day. He reached for my hand. I let him take it, though everything in me screamed to pull away. You work too hard, babe. Taking care of me, doing your design work. You should take a break. The audacity of it nearly broke my composure. Take a break. As if I had a choice. As if the past 5 years hadn't been one long marathon of caregiving without rest. Maybe you're right, I said softly. Maybe I should. That night, I lay in bed beside my husband and stared at the ceiling. 5 years ago, I'd been 28 years old with a thriving career in graphic design. I'd worked for a prestigious firm downtown, creating branding for major clients. My portfolio had been growing. My reputation was solid. I'd been on track for a promotion. Then came the accident. Or what I'd believed was an accident. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Derek had called me from the hospital, his voice shaking. Rear-ended on the highway. Minor collision, but he'd been taken in as a precaution. I'd rushed to the emergency room, my heart in my throat. By the time I arrived, the story had changed. Back pain. Numbness in his legs. The doctors were concerned. They wanted to run tests. The tests showed nothing conclusive. But Derek insisted he couldn't feel his legs, couldn't move them. More tests. More specialists. Everyone was baffled. The injury shouldn't have caused paralysis, but there it was. My husband, unable to walk. I'd been so focused on supporting him that I never questioned it. Never thought to doubt him. The doctors said sometimes psychological trauma manifested physically. They recommended therapy, both physical and mental. Insurance covered some of it. We paid for the rest. I'd taken a leave of absence from work to care for him. That leave became permanent when it was clear Derek needed full-time care. My boss had been understanding but firm. They couldn't hold my position indefinitely. I'd resigned with a heavy heart, watching my career dissolve. I'd set up a small freelance business from home, taking whatever design projects I could get between caregiving duties. The money was okay, but nothing like what I'd earned before. We'd burned through our savings. Derek's disability payments had become our primary income. Disability payments for a condition that didn't exist. My friends had drifted away over the years. How many dinner invitations had I declined? How many girls' nights had I missed? Eventually they'd stopped asking. I didn't blame them. Who wanted to hang around someone whose entire life revolved around a wheelchair? Even my relationship with Simone had suffered. We'd been so close before, talking every day, shopping together on weekends. But caregiving left no time for sisters. No time for anything except Derek's needs. I'd lost my career, my friends, my freedom, my identity. And for what? So Derek could avoid work and sleep with his therapist? Beside me, Derek snored softly, content in his web of lies. I turned my head to look at him in the darkness. His face was peaceful, unmarked by guilt or conscience. How long had he planned this? Had the idea come to him in the hospital after the real accident? Or had he been thinking about it before, waiting for an opportunity? And Vanessa? When had she gotten involved? Had she been his therapist from the beginning, or had she come later? Had she seduced him, or had he seduced her? Not that it mattered. They were both guilty. I thought about all the times Vanessa had been in our home. Bright, professional, always smiling. She'd seemed so dedicated to helping Derek. I'd admired her patience, her skill. I'd recommended her to other people. The betrayal burned like acid in my veins. I slipped out of bed carefully and went to the bathroom. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. When had I gotten so thin? My face was gaunt, shadows under my eyes. My hair, which I used to take pride in styling, was pulled back in a simple ponytail because I never had time for anything else. I was 33 years old and I looked 40. Derek had stolen my youth along with everything else. But I was taking it back. All of it. The next morning, I followed my usual routine. Made breakfast, helped Derek into his wheelchair, got him settled in the living room. He turned on the television while I cleaned up the kitchen. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Attorney Brooks can see you today at 2 p.m. I'll come with you. I typed back a quick confirmation and returned to the living room. Derek was absorbed in some talk show, laughing at the host's jokes. He looked so normal. So innocent. I have some errands to run this afternoon, I said casually. Will you be okay for a few hours? Sure. Actually, Vanessa mentioned she might stop by. Do some extra therapy work. Of course she did. I smiled pleasantly. That's nice of her. At 2 o'clock, I sat in Attorney Brooks's office with Simone beside me. The lawyer was a sharp woman in her 40s, dressed in a blue power suit, her dark skin glowing with health and competence. Mrs. Thompson, I've reviewed the materials your sister sent over, she said. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of fraud I've seen. The question isn't whether you'll win. It's how much you'll win. She outlined the civil case we could bring against Derek. Fraud. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Unjust enrichment. The list went on. Beyond the criminal charges the state will pursue, you can sue him personally for damages. Lost wages from your career. Pain and suffering. 5 years of your life spent in caregiving under false pretenses. We're looking at significant compensation. I want him to lose everything, I said quietly. Attorney Brooks smiled. Then that's what we'll get you. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I was the devoted wife. I cooked meals, administered medications Derek didn't need, helped him with the mobility exercises Vanessa prescribed. I smiled. I chatted. I maintained the fiction. But every spare moment, I was gathering evidence. I installed hidden cameras throughout the house, tiny devices Simone had helped me purchase. I documented everything. Derek's ability to reach things on high shelves when he thought I wasn't looking. The way he shifted his weight. Naturally in the wheelchair. The phone calls with Vanessa that stopped abruptly when I entered the room. Detective Morrison kept me updated. They were building a comprehensive case. They'd interviewed Dr. Harrison. Pulled Derek's complete medical history. Requested records from the disability insurance company. We found something interesting, she told me during one of our phone calls. Your husband has been claiming he needs special equipment. Modified vehicles. Home modifications. He's received over $200,000 in disability payments and reimbursements over 5 years. $200,000. Money he'd gotten by lying about being paralyzed. Money that should have been going to people with real disabilities. There's more, the detective continued. We checked Vanessa Torres's financials. She's been receiving payments from Derek. Direct deposits, cash gifts. He's been supporting her. With money he stole. Money meant for his disability. Money from insurance companies and government programs designed to help people in genuine need. The rage that filled me was clean and cold. This wasn't just about our marriage. Derek had committed crimes against society, against people who really needed help, against every principle of human decency. He was going to pay for all of it. At night, after Derek fell asleep, I worked on rebuilding my design portfolio. I contacted old clients, let them know I was available for projects again. The response was better than I'd expected. People remembered my work. They'd missed working with me. Slowly, project by project, I began to reconstruct my career. The work energized me. Reminded me who I'd been before Derek's lies had consumed my life. I was Naomi Thompson. Designer. Creative. Professional. And soon I would be free. The cameras I'd hidden throughout the house became my constant companions. Each evening after Derek fell asleep, I would download the footage onto my laptop and watch my husband's secret life unfold on the screen. The first time I saw him stand up from the wheelchair, my hands shook so badly I had to pause the video. It was 3 a.m. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom, and the motion-activated camera in the living room had started recording. Derek sat in his wheelchair in the darkness, the blue glow of his phone screen illuminating his face. Then he simply stood up, stretched his back like someone who'd been sitting too long, and walked to the kitchen. Not shuffled. Not stumbled. Walked. He opened the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, drank half of it while standing at the counter. Then he returned to the wheelchair, settled back in, and continued scrolling through his phone as if nothing had happened. I watched this footage 5 times, each viewing making me feel sicker. The casualness of it. The ease. He wasn't even trying hard to maintain the deception when he thought he was alone. Over the following days the cameras captured more. Derek doing stretches in the bedroom while I was out grocery shopping. Derek pacing the living room during phone calls. Derek dancing, actually dancing, to music videos on television. The dancing video became my favorite piece of evidence. He was so free, so joyful, moving his body without any sign of injury or limitation. Meanwhile, I was at the physical therapy office downtown, paying for my own back problems caused by years of lifting him. "This is gold," Attorney Brooks said when I showed her the footage during our weekly meeting. She'd taken to meeting me at coffee shops near my house so I could maintain my cover story of running errands. Absolute gold. A jury is going to see this and want to throw the book at him. Simone, who'd accompanied me to the meeting, shook her head in disgust. How is he not drowning in guilt? How does someone do this for 5 years? Narcissism, Attorney Brooks said matter-of-factly. I see it in fraud cases all the time. They convince themselves they deserve whatever they're taking. That the rules don't apply to them. I sipped my coffee, grateful for the bitter taste that grounded me. What about Vanessa? What happens to her? The medical board has opened an investigation. Based on what we've found, she'll lose her license at minimum. She may face criminal charges as well for conspiracy to commit fraud. Good. That shouldn't have made me feel satisfied, but it did. Vanessa had sat in my living room hundreds of times, accepted my payment, smiled at me, all while sleeping with my husband and helping him steal from insurance companies. Detective Morrison had dug deeper into Vanessa's background. Turned out this wasn't her first ethical violation. She'd been reprimanded at a previous job for inappropriate relationships with clients. The medical board had put her on probation. This new violation would end her career permanently. I need to tell you something, Detective Morrison had said during our last phone call. We've been monitoring Derek's communications. He and Vanessa are planning something. My blood had run cold. Planning what? They're talking about leaving. Going to another state. Changing identities. They seem to think the disability money will keep coming if Derek just transfers his case to a new doctor somewhere else. So they were going to run. Take the stolen money and disappear together, leaving me with nothing but debt and trauma. How long do we have? I'd asked. Based on their messages, they're planning to leave in about 3 weeks. But Naomi, we're ready to move now if you are. We have enough evidence to arrest Derek and revoke his disability benefits. The DA is prepared to file charges. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, Derek had planned to vanish from my life, taking everything with him. The thought should have devastated me. Instead, I felt something like relief. An end date. A finish line. Not yet, I told the detective. I want to catch them both. Together. I want everyone to see exactly what they've been doing. Now, sitting in the coffee shop with my lawyer and sister, I shared Detective Morrison's information about Derek and Vanessa's escape plan. That's perfect, Attorney Brooks said, her eyes lighting up. Flight shows consciousness of guilt. If we catch them in the act of trying to leave, it strengthens our case even more. How do we do that? I asked. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. We let them think they're going to get away. Let them book their tickets, pack their bags, get right up to the moment of departure. Then we spring the trap. Simone grinned. I like the way you think. The plan crystallized over the next hour. We would monitor Derek's preparations to leave. Let him get comfortable. Let him believe his scheme had worked. Then, at the airport or wherever they planned to make their escape, we would have police waiting. It needs to be public, I said. I want people to see. I want his family to know. Everyone who ever pitied him, everyone who ever praised me for being such a devoted wife. I want them all to know the truth. Revenge, Simone murmured. Justice, I corrected. But yes, revenge too. I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. That evening, I went home to find Vanessa's car in the driveway. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral as I walked through the front door. They were in the living room. Derek in his wheelchair, Vanessa kneeling beside him, her hand on his arm. They jumped apart when I entered, but not quickly enough. I saw the intimacy in their body language, the guilt flash across Vanessa's face. Oh, Naomi, she said brightly. Too brightly. I was just finishing up Derek's session. We had a really good day today. His muscle response is improving. That's wonderful, I said warmly. Thank you so much for all you do, Vanessa. Derek is lucky to have such a dedicated therapist. She had the grace to look uncomfortable. Just doing my job. I watched her pack up her therapy equipment, the same equipment she'd been bringing to my house for 5 years. The resistance bands Derek supposedly used to maintain muscle tone. The massage oils for his allegedly paralyzed legs. All props in their elaborate performance. Same time next week? Vanessa asked at the door. Actually, Derek said, and I heard the nervousness in his voice, we might need to skip next week. Naomi and I are thinking about taking a little trip. Getting out of town for a bit. My heart rate spiked, but I smiled. Are we? That's news to me. I wanted to surprise you, Derek said quickly. You've been working so hard. I thought maybe we could go somewhere relaxing. The coast maybe? The coast. Where he and Vanessa were planning to run to. That sounds lovely, I said. But can you travel? I mean, with your condition? Dr. Harrison said it would be okay. As long as we're careful. More lies piled on top of lies. Dr. Harrison had said no such thing because Derek hadn't seen Dr. Harrison in weeks, having canceled his last 2 appointments. After Vanessa left, I made dinner while Derek watched television. Chicken and vegetables, nothing special. As I cooked, I thought about all the meals I'd prepared over 5 years. Thousands of meals. Always making sure Derek had enough protein to maintain muscle mass. Enough nutrients for healing. Special diets recommended by nutritionists for paralysis patients. All wasted effort. All based on a lie. Naomi? Derek called from the living room. Can you help me? I found him awkwardly positioned in the wheelchair, his water glass on the floor where he'd supposedly dropped it. Of course. I bent to pick up the glass, refilled it in the kitchen, brought it back to him. Thanks, babe. I don't know what I'd do without you. I looked at him. Really looked. Tried to find some trace of the man I'd married 7 years ago. The man who'd been charming and fun, who'd made me laugh, who'd seemed to love me. That man had either never existed or he'd died a long time ago. What sat in front of me now was a stranger. A con artist. A thief who'd stolen years of my life. You'll never have to find out, I said softly. Let him interpret that however he wanted. That night, after Derek fell asleep, I reviewed more camera footage. This time from the bedroom camera hidden in the smoke detector. I'd been avoiding watching this footage, afraid of what I'd find. I should have trusted my instincts. The video showed Derek waiting about 30 minutes after I'd fall asleep each night. Then he'd carefully slip out of bed, moving slowly to avoid waking me. He'd leave the bedroom and I'd watch him on other cameras, walking through the house, using the computer in the office, making phone calls in whispered tones. But tonight's footage showed something different. Tonight, after I'd fallen asleep, Derek got out of bed and did a full workout. Push-ups, sit-ups, squats, lunges. A complete exercise routine that would be impossible for someone with paralyzed legs. The timestamp showed this happened every few nights. While I slept in exhaustion from caring for him, he was maintaining his physical fitness. I closed the laptop and sat in the darkness of the guest room where I'd been reviewing the footage. Tears ran down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage so pure it felt like fire in my veins. He'd made me doubt myself. All those times I'd wondered if I was doing enough, if I was a good enough caregiver, if Derek's lack of progress was somehow my fault. All those times I'd felt guilty for being tired, for resenting the burden, for wishing my life was different. He'd made me feel like a terrible person for having normal human emotions. And all along there was nothing wrong with him. The psychological abuse was almost worse than the financial fraud. He'd gaslit me for 5 years, making me question my own perceptions, my own worth. But that was ending. So I pulled up the calendar on my phone. 2.5 weeks until Derek and Vanessa planned to leave. 2.5 weeks to prepare for the moment when their whole world would collapse. I could wait. I'd already waited 5 years. What was 18 more days? I returned to the bedroom and slipped back into bed beside Derek. He stirred slightly but didn't wake. In the darkness, I whispered words he couldn't hear. Enjoy it while it lasts. Because your performance is almost over. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains as I helped Derek into his wheelchair, going through the motions I'd performed thousands of times. But today felt different. Today I was done pretending not to know. Derek, I said quietly as I positioned the wheelchair by the window. I need to talk to you about something. He looked up from his phone, his expression shifting to concern. That fake concern I now recognized for what it was. What's wrong, babe? You seem tense. I sat down on the couch across from him, my hands folded in my lap. For a moment I just looked at him, memorizing this moment. The last time he'd be able to lie to me with impunity. I saw Dr. Harrison a few weeks ago, I began. Something flickered across his face. Fear. But he recovered quickly. Yeah, I know. My regular appointment. How'd it go? He showed me something interesting. Security footage from the hospital. Derek went very still. His fingers tightened on the armrest of the wheelchair. Security footage? Of you walking, Derek. Walking through the hospital halls like there's nothing wrong with you at all. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not, you must have misunderstood what you saw. I didn't misunderstand. I saw you walk. I saw you move normally. And then I saw you meet Vanessa in the therapy room after hours. Naomi, listen. He rolled the wheelchair closer to me, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. It's not what you think. I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been lying to me for 5 years? Explain how you've been committing fraud? Explain how you've been sleeping with your therapist while I sacrificed everything to take care of you. His face changed then. The mask of helplessness slipped, replaced by something harder. Calculation. You can't prove any of that. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound startled even me. Can't I? Derek, I have video evidence. Medical records. Financial documents. Phone records. I have cameras all over this house that have been recording you for weeks. I've watched you walk, exercise, dance. I've seen everything. He stared at me, his expression shifting rapidly between emotions. Anger. Fear. Finally landing on something like desperation. Okay, he said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Okay, yes. I lied. But Naomi, you have to understand. The accident was traumatic. I had psychological issues. I couldn't deal with the pressure of work, of life. I needed a break. A break that lasted 5 years? A break that cost me my career, my friends, my entire life. I know I messed up. He moved the wheelchair even closer. I stood up, putting distance between us. But we can fix this. I'll go to therapy. Real therapy. We can work through this together. Together? The word felt like poison on my tongue. You want to work through this together? After what you've done. I love you, Naomi. I made mistakes, but I love you. You love me? I felt my voice rising, all the anger of the past weeks finally breaking through. You love me so much you let me waste 5 years of my life? You love me so much you committed crimes in my name? You love me so much you screwed your therapist while I was working myself to death to support you? It's not like that with Vanessa. She doesn't mean anything. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get. My house. Derek's expression hardened. This is my house too. And in case you forgot, I can't exactly leave. I'm paralyzed. No, you're not. And we both know it. So you can stand up on those perfectly functional legs and walk out my door, or I can call the police right now and have them carry you out in handcuffs. Your choice. For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then Derek did something I'd been waiting to see for weeks. He stood up. Just like that. No effort. No struggle. He simply rose from the wheelchair with the ease of someone who'd been walking all along. "You're making a huge mistake," he said, his voice cold now. "All pretense gone. You think you're going to destroy me? You think anyone will believe you over me? I've been building sympathy for 5 years. People love me. They feel sorry for me. They won't after they see the evidence. Evidence that you could have faked. Evidence that your lawyer will tear apart in court. You'll look crazy, Naomi. The bitter wife who couldn't handle being a caregiver." I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing him the screen. It displayed the security app connected to all my hidden cameras. "Every word you just said was recorded. Including you standing up from that wheelchair." Derek's face contorted with rage. He took a step toward me, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I felt physically afraid of him. But before he could reach me, the front door burst open. Simone stood in the doorway, her phone in her hand. "I'd stop right there if I were you, Derek. I've got 911 on speed dial and I'm not afraid to use it." He froze, looking between us. "This is insane. You're both insane." "What's insane is thinking you could get away with this," Simone said. She walked into the house, positioning herself between Derek and me. "What's insane is faking paralysis for 5 years. What's insane is stealing from insurance companies, from the government, from people who actually need help." "I'm leaving," Derek said. "And I'm taking what's mine." "Take your clothes and get out," I said. "Everything else stays. We'll see what my lawyer says about that." "By all means, call your lawyer." I look forward to my lawyer destroying them in court. Derek stormed into the bedroom. I heard him throwing things around, packing hastily. Simone and I stood in the living room, not speaking, just listening to him rage. "You planned this?" I said quietly to my sister. "Of course I did. You think I'd let you confront him alone? I've been parked down the street for the past hour, waiting for your signal." "I didn't send a signal. You didn't need to. I know you, Naomi. I knew today was the day." Derek emerged from the bedroom with 2 suitcases, still walking normally. He didn't even bother pretending anymore. At the door, he turned back to look at me. "You're going to regret this," he said. "The only thing I regret is wasting 5 years on you." He left, slamming the door behind him. Through the window, I watched him load his suitcases into his car, the car with the handicapped parking permit he'd fraudulently obtained. He drove away without looking back. The silence that followed felt enormous. I sank onto the couch, my whole body shaking. "You did it," Simone said softly, sitting beside me. "You actually did it." "Phase 1 complete," I managed to say. "Now comes the hard part." My phone rang. "Detective Morrison." "Mrs. Thompson, I've been watching the live feed you gave me access to. That confrontation was perfect. We have everything we need now. Are you ready to proceed with the arrest?" I looked around the house, at the wheelchair sitting empty by the window, at the medical equipment I'd purchased over the years, at the grab bars and ramps and modifications that had cost thousands of dollars. All of it unnecessary. All of it props in Derek's theater of lies. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready. We'll move in the morning. I'll coordinate with his lawyer to have him surrender himself, but if he doesn't comply, we'll issue a warrant. Either way, Derek Thompson will be in custody within 24 hours. After I hung up, Simone ordered pizza and we sat on the couch eating and planning the next steps. Attorney Brooks had already filed the civil suit. Detective Morrison had the criminal charges ready. Everything was in motion. "How do you feel?" Simone asked. I thought about it. How did I feel? Angry, yes. Betrayed, absolutely. But underneath all that was something else. Something lighter. "Free," I said. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel free." That night, I slept in the master bedroom alone. I changed the sheets, opened the windows, let fresh air sweep through the room. I looked at the space with new eyes, seeing it not as Derek's sick room but as my bedroom. My space. Tomorrow, the legal machinery would grind into motion. Derek would be arrested. Vanessa would lose her license. The truth would come out. But tonight, I was just Naomi. Not a caregiver. Not a victim. Just me. I pulled out my laptop and opened my design software, a program I hadn't used for personal projects in years. I started creating, letting my fingers remember the joy of making something beautiful. Colors and shapes flowed across the screen. A logo design. A brand identity. For myself. Naomi Thompson Design Studio. It was time to reclaim everything I'd lost. My career. My confidence. My life. And this was only the beginning. The call came at 7 in the morning. I was already awake, had been for hours, too anxious to sleep. Detective Morrison's voice was crisp and professional. Derek Thompson was arrested an hour ago attempting to board a flight to Mexico. Vanessa Torres was with him. They're both in custody. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly weak. Mexico? They were leaving today. Their flight was scheduled for 9 a.m. We had officers waiting at the airport. Derek resisted initially, claimed there was some mistake, but when we showed him the warrant, he went quietly enough. Vanessa, on the other hand, had quite a bit to say. What did she say? She's trying to claim she didn't know Derek was faking. Says she believed his paralysis was real, that he must have been having spontaneous recovery episodes she wasn't aware of. But we have text messages between them discussing the whole scheme. She's not going to be able to talk her way out of this. After the call ended, I sat in silence for a long moment. It was done. Actually done. Derek and Vanessa were in jail. My phone buzzed with a text from Attorney Brooks. Saw the news about the arrests. Perfect timing. Our civil suit is filing today. The media is going to have a field day with this. She was right. By noon, the story had hit local news stations. Local man arrested for faking paralysis in 5-year fraud scheme. The news van showed up at the house around 2 in the afternoon. I didn't answer the door, just watched through the window as reporters tried to get statements, tried to piece together the story. Simone came over to help me manage the circus. You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to, she said. I do though. I looked at my sister. I want people to know what he did. Not just the fraud, the abuse, the manipulation. I want everyone to see who Derek Thompson really is. We contacted one reporter, a woman from the local station who'd been covering fraud cases for years. Her name was Patricia Chin, and she arrived at the house that evening with a camera crew. Mrs. Thompson, she said when I answered the door. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us. I know this must be an incredibly difficult time. I let her and her crew inside. Simone had helped me prepare, choosing a bright blue blouse that looked good on camera, making sure the living room was tidy but not staged. The wheelchair still sat in the corner, a silent testimony to the lie. Patricia's questions were direct but fair. She asked me to tell the story from the beginning. I did, my voice steady even as I recounted the worst parts. The years of caregiving. The sacrificed career. The isolation. And you had no idea he was faking? Patricia asked. None. He was that convincing. Or maybe I was that trusting. Probably both. When did you first suspect something was wrong? I told her about Dr. Harrison, about the security footage, about the hidden cameras I'd installed in my own home. I showed her some of the footage, Derek walking, exercising, living a completely normal life when he thought no one was watching. Patricia's expression shifted from professional interest to genuine outrage as she watched. I've covered a lot of fraud cases, Mrs. Thompson, but this is particularly cruel. I want people to understand, I said, looking directly into the camera. This wasn't just about money. Derek stole 5 years of my life. He made me question myself, doubt my abilities, feel guilty for basic human emotions. That's the real crime. Not just the fraud but the psychological abuse. The interview aired that night during the primetime news slot. I watched it with Simone, both of us sitting on the couch with glasses of wine. You did good, Simone said as my face filled the screen. Really good. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Friends I hadn't heard from in years. Former colleagues. People from my old life reaching out with support and shock. I answered some calls, let others go to voicemail. It was overwhelming, this sudden flood of attention after years of isolation. But then came a call I wasn't expecting. Vanessa's mother. Mrs. Thompson? The woman's voice was shaking. My name is Rita Torres. I'm Vanessa's mother. I need to talk to you. Every instinct told me to hang up. But curiosity won out. I'm listening. I need you to know I had no idea what she was doing. No idea about any of it. I saw your interview and I'm just so sorry. What my daughter did was wrong. So wrong. Yes, it was. She's been telling me this whole story about how you're setting her up, how you're jealous because Derek was recovering faster with her than with other therapists. But I watched that video footage. I saw Derek walking. And I know my daughter lied to me. I didn't know what to say. This woman's pain was real, but it wasn't my problem. I'm not looking for your forgiveness, Rita continued. I know that's not something you owe me or her. I just wanted you to hear from someone in her family that we don't support what she did. And I wanted to tell you that I'm testifying against her. That got my attention. You're what? The prosecutor contacted me. They want me to testify about things Vanessa said to me about Derek. I told them yes. My daughter needs to face consequences for what she's done. After the call ended, I sat holding the phone, processing this new development. Vanessa's own mother was going to testify against her. The betrayal went deeper than I'd imagined. Detective Morrison confirmed it the next day when we met at her office. Rita Torres has been very cooperative. Apparently, Vanessa told her mother about Derek months ago, bragging about the relationship. Mrs. Torres thought it was inappropriate but didn't realize the extent of the fraud. Now she's appalled and wants to help our case. What about Derek? I asked. Is he talking? He's hired a lawyer who's advising him not to say anything. But we don't need his cooperation. We have overwhelming evidence. The DA is moving forward with multiple charges. Disability fraud, insurance fraud, conspiracy, filing false claims. He's looking at serious prison time. And Vanessa? She's trying to make a deal. Wants to testify against Derek in exchange for a lighter sentence. But the DA isn't particularly interested in dealing. We have enough evidence to convict them both independently. Good. They both deserved everything coming to them. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom with Attorney Brooks on one side and Simone on the other. Derek was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without his wheelchair and his lies to hide behind. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I saw anger there and fear and something that might have been regret. But I felt nothing. This man was a stranger to me now. Vanessa was brought in separately. She wore a gray suit, her hair pulled back, makeup minimal. She looked professional, but I could see the terror in her eyes. When she glanced at me, I held her gaze until she looked away. The judge reviewed the charges, set bail amounts that neither Derek nor Vanessa could make, and scheduled the trial for 3 months out. The whole proceeding took less than 30 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us again. This time I was ready. Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel seeing your husband in custody? I feel relieved that the truth is finally coming out. Do you think the charges are appropriate? I think Derek and Vanessa deserve to face the full consequences of their actions. They didn't just commit fraud. They betrayed the trust of everyone who believed in them. What's next for you? I smiled and it felt genuine. I'm rebuilding my life. Starting my design business again. Focusing on my future. Attorney Brooks pulled me away from the microphone. That's enough for now. Mrs. Thompson has been through a trauma and needs time to heal. In the car, Simone squeezed my hand. You're amazing. You know that, right? I'm surviving. That's not the same thing. It's a start. She was right. This was a start. The legal process would take months, maybe years. But I'd already won the most important victory. I'd taken my life back. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I went to a restaurant with friends. 3 women from my old design firm who'd reached out after seeing the news coverage. We met at a bistro downtown, a place with bright red booths and cheerful music. Naomi, one of them said, hugging me tight. We're so sorry. We should have stayed in touch. We should have been there for you. You didn't know, I said. None of us knew. We ordered wine and appetizers and talked for hours. They caught me up on the design world, on who was working where, on trends and technologies. I soaked it all in, remembering how much I'd loved this life. The thing is, another friend said carefully, we have some freelance projects coming up. Corporate rebranding work. If you're interested, we'd love to bring you on. Seriously? Your portfolio was incredible, Naomi. Is incredible. We've missed working with you. If you're ready to get back into it, we have work. I felt tears prick my eyes. Happy tears this time. Yes. God, yes. I'm so ready. Walking back to my car later, I felt lighter than I had in years. The night air was cool and fresh. The city lights sparkled. Somewhere in a jail cell, Derek was sleeping on a thin mattress, facing the reality of his crimes. Vanessa was in another cell, her career destroyed, her future uncertain. And I was here. Free. About to start over. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line read, Design Portfolio Review. I opened it, my heart racing. It was from a gallery owner named Gabriel Santos. He'd seen my portfolio online and wanted to discuss featuring some of my work in an upcoming show focused on graphic design as fine art. Your work has a unique perspective, he wrote. Raw emotion combined with technical precision. I'd love to talk more about how we might collaborate. I stood on the sidewalk reading the email 3 times. A gallery show. Recognition for my work. Opportunities opening up. 5 years ago, Derek had tried to bury me under the weight of his lies. He tried to make me small, trapped, dependent. But I wasn't buried. I was rising. And this was only the beginning. The law office of Brooks and Associates occupied the 7th floor of a downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. I sat across from Attorney Brooks in her conference room, surrounded by stacks of documents that represented 5 years of lies documented in painful detail. "I've divided our case into 3 main components," Attorney Brooks said, gesturing to the organized piles. "Financial fraud, emotional distress, and loss of earnings. Each one builds on the other to show the full extent of Derek's damage." She pulled out a spreadsheet, color-coded and comprehensive. "Let's start with the financial fraud. Derek received approximately $210,000 in disability payments over 5 years. He also claimed an additional $90,000 in special equipment and home modifications that you paid for out of pocket." I stared at the numbers. $300,000. Money that should have gone to people with real disabilities. Then there's the cost of Vanessa's services. You paid her directly for therapy sessions at $200 per session, 3 times a week for 5 years. That's another $62,000 roughly. My stomach turned. I'd paid Vanessa to pretend to treat Derek. I'd actually paid for their affair. Next, we calculate your lost earnings. You were making $75,000 a year at your design firm when you quit to care for Derek. Over 5 years, that's $375,000 in lost wages. But we're also claiming lost career advancement. Based on your trajectory, you likely would have been promoted to senior designer within 2 years, putting your salary closer to $95,000. That increases our claim." The numbers kept growing. Each line item represented another piece of my stolen life. Finally, there's emotional distress. This is harder to quantify, but we have your therapy records, statements from friends and family about the changes they witnessed in you, medical records showing your own health decline due to caregiver stress. We're claiming significant damages here. "How much total?" I asked quietly. "We're suing for $8 million in compensatory and punitive damages." I nearly choked. $8 million? Derek doesn't have that kind of money. "No, but the insurance companies do. We're naming them as defendants too, arguing they failed in their duty to properly investigate Derek's claim. We'll likely settle with them separately, but it strengthens our position." Over the next 3 hours we went through every detail of the case. Text messages between Derek and Vanessa planning their scheme. Medical records proving Derek's injury was minor. Security footage from multiple locations showing him walking normally. My hidden camera recordings from the house. "The prosecution is being very generous with us," Attorney Brooks noted. "Usually, civil and criminal cases can conflict, but Detective Morrison has been coordinating everything. We're all working toward the same goal." Simone arrived for the second half of the meeting, bringing coffee and a tablet with more evidence she'd compiled. "I've been going through Derek's social media," she said, pulling up his accounts. "Look at this. Posts from 2 years ago about how grateful he is for his loving wife who takes care of him. Posts about being brave in the face of disability. He even started a blog about coping with paralysis." The blog was still online. I'd never known it existed. Derek had written dozens of posts about his journey, his struggles, his inspirational recovery process. Each post made my blood boil. "This is perfect," Attorney Brooks said. "It shows premeditation and ongoing deception. He wasn't just passively lying. He was actively building a false narrative." We found a post from 6 months ago where Derek had solicited donations for a charity supporting paralysis research. Over $5,000 had been raised. Money that went directly into Derek's account, not to any charity. "That's another fraud charge," Simone noted grimly. Detective Morrison joined us via video call to discuss the criminal case's progress. Her face filled the conference room screen, her expression serious. "The DA has added additional charges based on new evidence," she said. "Wire fraud for the donations. False impersonation for using a handicapped parking permit. And we're looking at charges related to the prescription medications Derek was getting for a condition he didn't have." Prescription medications? This was news to me. Pain medication, muscle relaxers, antispasm drugs. All prescribed for paralysis-related symptoms. All of which Derek was taking and apparently selling on the side. I felt sick. How had I lived with this man for 5 years and never seen who he really was? "Vanessa is trying to cooperate now," Detective Morrison continued. "She's given us information about how they planned the whole scheme. Apparently, it started about 2 months after Derek's real accident. He realized he could milk the injury for sympathy and money, and he recruited Vanessa, who he'd started an affair with while doing legitimate physical therapy. So she knew from the beginning, I said. From the very beginning. She helped him design the deception, taught him how to make his story believable to doctors. In exchange, Derek supported her financially and promised they'd eventually run away together once he'd accumulated enough disability money. The betrayal kept getting worse with every new detail. After the video call ended, Attorney Brooks and I discussed settlement possibilities. Derek's lawyer has already reached out, she said. They want to settle both the criminal and civil cases. Derek would plead guilty to reduced charges and agree to a financial settlement with you. No, I said immediately. Naomi, a trial is risky. Juries are unpredictable. I don't care. I want him to face trial. I want everyone to hear the whole story. A settlement lets him hide. Attorney Brooks studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Then we go to trial. Over the following weeks, I threw myself into preparing for the legal battle. Attorney Brooks needed me to document everything. Every sacrifice I'd made, every dream I'd deferred, every moment of the past 5 years. I wrote it all down. The exhaustion. The isolation. The times I'd cried in the shower so Derek wouldn't hear. The career opportunities I'd turned down. The friends' weddings I'd missed. The vacations I'd never taken. The person I'd stopped being. My testimony would be crucial. Attorney Brooks and I rehearsed it over and over, preparing me for cross-examination, for the tricks Derek's lawyer would try to use to discredit me. They'll say you're bitter, she warned. They'll suggest you're exaggerating for money. They'll try to paint Derek as a victim of psychological trauma who needs help, not punishment. Let them try, I said. I met with a therapist 3 times a week, processing the trauma of the past 5 years. Dr. Michelle Reynolds was a specialist in trauma from emotional abuse and deception. She helped me understand that what Derek had done wasn't just fraud but a form of gaslighting that had lasting psychological impacts. You questioned your reality for 5 years, Dr. Reynolds explained during one session. Every day you saw Derek unable to walk and you accepted that as truth. Your brain created neural pathways based on that false reality. Now those pathways have to be rewired. It's why you're having intrusive thoughts and doubts. I keep wondering if I missed signs, I admitted. If I should have known. That's the gaslighting talking. Derek was a skilled manipulator. This wasn't your fault. The therapy helped, but the real healing came from reclaiming my life piece by piece. I accepted the freelance design work my friends had offered. Started with small projects, relearning the software, rebuilding my confidence. The first project was a logo redesign for a local bakery. Simple work, but it felt amazing to be creating again. The client loved it, posted about it on social media, tagged me in the post. Within days, I had 3 more inquiries. I created a website for Naomi Thompson Design Studio. Posted my portfolio, wrote about my background and approach. Carefully avoided mentioning Derek or the past 5 years. This was about my future, not my past. Gabriel Santos, the gallery owner who'd emailed me, called to schedule a meeting. We met at his gallery, a sleek space in the arts district with white walls and perfect lighting. Gabriel was in his early 40s, with warm brown skin, intelligent dark eyes, and an easy smile. He wore a green button-down shirt and black slacks, professional but approachable. Your work is extraordinary, he said, walking me through the gallery. You have this ability to convey complex emotions through simple design. It's rare. Thank you, I managed and used to such direct praise. I want to feature you in our emerging artists show next month. 10 pieces of your choice. We'll handle framing, marketing, the opening reception. All I need from you is the art. An art show. My work in a gallery. It felt surreal. I'd be honored, I said. Over coffee after the gallery tour, Gabriel asked about my background. I gave him the sanitized version, focusing on my training and professional experience. But he was perceptive. There's a darkness in some of your recent work, he observed. Pain mixed with resilience. It's compelling. I've been through some things, I said carefully. Haven't we all? He didn't push for details. I appreciated that. We talked about art and design for 2 hours. It was the first conversation I'd had in years that was just about work, about creativity, about passion for the craft. Not about Derek. Not about caregiving. Not about sacrifice. It felt like breathing after being underwater. That evening, I attended a support group for people who'd been victims of fraud by family members. The group met in a church basement, 12 people sitting in a circle sharing stories that ranged from heartbreaking to infuriating. My brother stole my identity, one woman said. Opened credit cards in my name, took out loans, destroyed my credit score. And my parents still defend him. My husband emptied our retirement accounts to fund his gambling addiction, another shared. 20 years of savings gone. And he still doesn't think he did anything wrong. When it was my turn, I shared my story. The fake paralysis. The wasted years. The upcoming trial. The group listened with understanding that came from their own experiences of betrayal. The hardest part isn't the money, I said. It's the trust. How do you ever trust anyone again? An older man named Robert spoke up. You don't at first. And that's okay. Trust has to be rebuilt slowly, person by person. But it can be rebuilt. I know because I did it. His words stayed with me. Trust could be rebuilt. Not with Derek, never with Derek. But with others. With new people who came into my life. With myself. Walking to my car after the meeting, my phone rang. Attorney Brooks. I have news, she said. Derek's lawyer just filed a motion to suppress the hidden camera evidence. They're arguing it violates his privacy rights. My heart sank. Can they do that? They can try. But Judge Martinez is smart and she doesn't like fraud. We'll fight it. Don't worry, Naomi. We have plenty of other evidence even without the cameras. But the cameras showed everything. They were my proof, my vindication. When's the hearing on the motion? Next week. I'll prep you as a witness. You'll need to testify about why you installed the cameras and what you were hoping to find. Another court appearance. Another round of questions. But I was ready. I'd been preparing for this fight for months. And I wasn't going to lose. The motion hearing took place on a gray Thursday morning. I sat in the courtroom wearing a burgundy dress that Simone had helped me pick out, my hands folded in my lap as I watched Judge Martinez review the arguments. Derek's lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Thomas Griffin, stood to present his case. Your Honor, the hidden cameras Mrs. Thompson installed in the marital home represent a clear violation of my client's reasonable expectation of privacy. Evidence obtained through such means should be inadmissible. Judge Martinez, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and piercing eyes, looked unimpressed. Mr. Griffin, your client was committing fraud in that home. He was deceiving his wife while she provided care based on false pretenses. Be that as it may, Your Honor, privacy rights don't disappear simply because someone is accused of wrongdoing. Mrs. Thompson had other avenues available to her. She could have hired a private investigator. She could have asked Mr. Thompson directly about her suspicions. Attorney Brooks stood, her voice clear and strong. Your Honor, Mrs. Thompson is the legal owner of that home. She had every right to install security cameras in her own property. Furthermore, she had reasonable suspicion that fraud was being committed based on information provided by Mr. Thompson's own doctor. The judge nodded. I'm inclined to agree, but I want to hear from Mrs. Thompson herself. Mrs. Thompson, please take the stand. I walked to the witness box on shaking legs, raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. Looking out at the courtroom, I saw Derek sitting at the defense table. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Attorney Brooks approached me with a gentle expression. Mrs. Thompson, can you explain why you installed cameras in your home? I took a breath. Dr. Harrison showed me security footage from the hospital that showed my husband walking normally. I was shocked and confused. For 5 years, I'd believed Derek was paralyzed. I'd reorganized my entire life around caring for him. Dr. Harrison suggested Derek had been faking, but I needed to see it for myself. Why not simply confront your husband? Because part of me still didn't believe it was true. I thought maybe there was an explanation. Maybe he was having spontaneous recovery episodes or something. I needed evidence before I could accept that the past 5 years had been a lie. And what did the cameras show you? They showed Derek walking, exercising, doing normal activities whenever he thought I wasn't watching. They showed him standing up from the wheelchair dozens of times. They showed the truth. Griffin stood to cross-examine me. His expression was sympathetic, which put me on guard immediately. Mrs. Thompson, isn't it true that you were angry with your husband? I was hurt and confused. Hurt enough to want revenge? I wanted the truth. The truth, or evidence to use against him in a divorce? Attorney Brooks objected. Relevance, Your Honor. I'll allow it, Judge Martinez said. Answer the question, Mrs. Thompson. I wanted to know if my husband had been lying to me, I said clearly. That's all. Griffin pressed on. These cameras, they were hidden in private spaces, correct? The bedroom? The bathroom? The bedroom, yes. Not the bathroom. I'm not a monster. But you did invade your husband's privacy in the bedroom where he slept. It was also my bedroom. My house. And he was committing fraud. Alleged fraud, Mrs. Thompson. At the time you installed these cameras, you had no proof of fraud, just suspicions. I had Dr. Harrison's statement and hospital security footage, which could have been explained in other ways. But instead of asking your husband, instead of trusting him, you chose to spy on him. I felt my anger rising but kept my voice level. I trusted him for 5 years, Mr. Griffin. I trusted him when he said he couldn't walk. I trusted him when he said he needed my constant care. I trusted him completely. And he lied to me every single day. Griffin paused, perhaps realizing he was losing the room. Even Judge Martinez looked sympathetic toward me. No further questions, he said finally. Judge Martinez took less than 5 minutes to rule. The cameras were installed by Mrs. Thompson in her own home based on reasonable suspicion of fraud. The evidence is admissible. Motion denied. I felt relief wash through me. The camera footage would be shown at trial. The jury would see everything. As we left the courthouse, Attorney Brooks squeezed my shoulder. That was perfect. You were calm, credible, sympathetic. If that's how you testify at trial, we're going to win big. But the victory felt hollow. Yes, we'd won this battle, but the war was far from over. Detective Morrison called that afternoon with an update. Derek's lawyers are getting desperate. They've approached the DA again about a plea deal. They're offering to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. What kind of sentence? 3 years with possibility of parole after 18 months. 3 years. For stealing 5 years of my life. For fraud. For abuse. For everything. That's not enough, I said. The DA agrees with you. She's holding firm for trial. But Naomi, you should know that Derek has also filed for bankruptcy. He's trying to shield his assets from your civil suit. Of course he was. Even now, Derek was scheming, looking for angles, trying to avoid consequences. Can he do that? His bankruptcy lawyer will argue he has no assets worth protecting. But we're fighting it. Fraudulent conveyance, bad faith filing. We'll pierce that corporate veil. The legal terminology washed over me. All I heard was that Derek was still fighting, still lying, still trying to win. That evening, I met with Gabriel again to finalize the pieces for the gallery show. We sat in his office, reviewing my portfolio on his computer. This one, he said, pointing to a design I'd created the week after installing the cameras. It was abstract, dark blues and grays swirling around a central point of stark white light. This one is powerful. What's the story behind it? I hesitated. Gabriel had been professional, never prying into my personal life. But looking at the piece, I saw my own pain reflected back at me. It's called Emergence, I said quietly. It's about breaking free from something that was suffocating you. He studied the piece for a long moment. I saw the news coverage, about your husband. My stomach dropped. Oh. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I wanted you to know that your strength is visible in your work. Whatever you went through, whatever you're still going through, it's made your art more powerful. Thank you, I managed. The gallery opening is in 2 weeks. I've invited critics, collectors, other artists. This could be a real launchpad for your career. After 5 years of nothing, suddenly I had opportunities flooding in. The whiplash was dizzying. As I drove home that night, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Naomi? A woman's voice, familiar but strained. Vanessa. I nearly hung up immediately. But curiosity held me. What do you want? I need to talk to you. Please. Just 5 minutes. We have nothing to discuss. I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But there's something you need to know about Derek. Something he's planning. That got my attention. What are you talking about? Not over the phone. Can we meet somewhere public? A coffee shop. Every instinct screamed not to engage. Vanessa was a liar and a manipulator. Whatever she wanted to tell me was probably another scheme. But what if it wasn't? Tomorrow, I said. The coffee shop on 5th Street. No. And Vanessa? If this is some kind of trick, I'll make sure the DA knows you're still trying to manipulate me. It's not a trick. I promise. I hung up and immediately called Detective Morrison to inform her about the meeting. She wasn't happy. Naomi, this could be a setup. Let me send an officer with you. No. If Vanessa sees a cop, she won't talk. But I'll record the conversation on my phone. If she says anything incriminating, you'll have it. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, secured a table in the corner with good visibility, and set my phone to record in my pocket. When Vanessa walked in at exactly noon, I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight. Her face was drawn, her hair dull. She wore a faded blue sweatshirt and jeans, none of the polished professionalism she'd shown as Derek's therapist. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting down across from me. "You have 5 minutes. Start talking." Vanessa looked down at her hands. "First, I need to say I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, I know it doesn't fix what I did, but I am sorry. What we did to you was cruel and wrong." "We?" I said coldly. "You mean what you and Derek did? Together? For 5 years?" "Yes." Her voice cracked. "I was young and stupid when I met Derek. He was charming, told me he loved me, said his marriage was already over. I believed him. And when he came up with the idea to fake the paralysis, he made it sound like a victimless crime. Insurance companies have plenty of money, he said. No one would really get hurt. Except I got hurt. I got destroyed. I know. I see that now. Being in jail, having time to think without Derek manipulating me, I see how wrong it all was. He's a sociopath, Naomi. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. And you're different? No, I'm not. I'm guilty too. But I'm trying to make it right. That's why I called you. Derek is planning something." I leaned forward. "Planning what?" "He's going to claim psychological breakdown. His lawyer is going to argue that he had a mental break after the accident, developed a conversion disorder that made him genuinely believe he was paralyzed. They're going to say he needs treatment, not prison. That's insane. The evidence shows he was faking." "I know. But his lawyer thinks he can sell it to a jury. Play on their sympathy. Paint you as the vindictive ex-wife who doesn't understand mental illness." My hands clenched into fists. "They won't get away with that." "They might. Derek is very convincing. You know that better than anyone." Vanessa met my eyes. "That's why I'm willing to testify. Not for a deal. The DA already said no deals. But I'll testify and tell the jury exactly how we planned it, how Derek knew what he was doing every step of the way. I'll destroy his mental breakdown defense." I stared at her, trying to read whether this was genuine or another manipulation. "Why would you do that?" "It'll make your own sentence worse." "Because it's the truth. And because..." She paused, tears filling her eyes. "Because I had a sister who was actually paralyzed. A car accident when she was 16. She died 3 years ago, still in her wheelchair, still fighting every day just to live. And what Derek and I did spits on her memory. It spits on every person who really suffers from paralysis. I can't take it back, but I can at least tell the truth." The conversation lasted another 20 minutes. Vanessa gave me details about Derek's new legal strategy, about the expert witnesses his lawyer planned to call, about the narrative they were building. When she left, I sat in the coffee shop for a long time, processing. Could I trust anything Vanessa had said? Was this genuine remorse or another layer of manipulation? I called Detective Morrison and sent her the recording. "This is good," the detective said after listening. "If she's serious about testifying, she could devastate Derek's defense. But Naomi, be careful. Don't let your guard down with her." "I won't. But if what she said is true, we need to be ready for Derek's new strategy." Attorney Brooks agreed. We spent the next week preparing for the possibility that Derek would claim mental illness. We gathered expert witnesses of our own, psychologists who could testify that Derek's behavior showed clear intention and planning, not mental breakdown. The trial date was set, 3 weeks away. 3 weeks until everything would finally be decided in court. 3 weeks until I could finally close this chapter of my life and start fresh. But first we had to win. The morning of the trial arrived cold and clear. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, putting on the final touches of makeup while Simone sat on the edge of the bathtub, giving me a pep talk. "You've got this," she said. "You're strong, you're prepared, and most importantly, you're telling the truth." I smoothed down my red dress, the color bright and powerful, exactly the opposite of how I'd felt for the past 5 years. What if the jury doesn't believe me? They will. They'd have to be blind not to see what Derek did. We arrived at the courthouse an hour early. Attorney Brooks met us in the hallway, her arms full of files and exhibits. "Big day," she said. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The courtroom filled slowly. I saw Derek's family in the gallery, his mother and sister who'd always treated me with cool politeness. They glared at me as I walked past. To them, I was the villain in this story, the bitter wife who couldn't forgive her disabled husband's innocent relationship with his therapist. They were about to learn the truth. Detective Morrison arrived with several officers who'd worked on the case. Dr. Harrison sat in the witness area, ready to testify. And in the back row I spotted Gabriel. He texted me earlier that morning wishing me luck, but I hadn't expected him to actually come. Our eyes met across the courtroom. He gave me a small, encouraging nod. Derek was led in by his lawyer, still playing the victim card. He moved slowly, carefully, as if his body pained him. But I'd seen the jail surveillance footage. I knew he walked normally when he thought no one was watching. "All rise," the bailiff called out. Judge Martinez entered, her expression stern. This was it. The moment of truth. The prosecutor, District Attorney Rachel Chen, gave her opening statement first. She was a formidable woman in her 50s, wearing a navy suit and carrying herself with absolute confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about deception on a massive scale," she began. "For 5 years, Derek Thompson lied to his wife, to doctors, to insurance companies, and to the government. He claimed he was paralyzed when he was not. He collected over $200,000 in disability payments he didn't deserve. He manipulated and emotionally abused his wife while carrying on an affair with his therapist. The evidence will show that Mr. Thompson is not a victim. He is a criminal who stole 5 years of his wife's life and hundreds of thousands of dollars from systems designed to help people with real disabilities." She outlined the evidence methodically. The security footage, the medical records, the financial documents, my testimony. By the time she finished, the jury looked shocked. Derek's lawyer, Thomas Griffin, stood for his opening statement. His strategy was immediately clear. "My client is sick," he said solemnly. "Not physically paralyzed as he believed, but suffering from a severe psychological condition. The trauma of his accident triggered a conversion disorder, a real medical condition where psychological distress manifests as physical symptoms. Derek Thompson genuinely believed he couldn't walk. He's not a criminal. He's a mentally ill man who needs treatment." I felt my jaw tighten. This was exactly what Vanessa had warned me about. The prosecution called Dr. Harrison first. He testified about the medical evidence, explaining clearly and scientifically why Derek's original injury couldn't have caused paralysis. "The soft tissue damage was minimal," he said. "There was no spinal cord involvement, no nerve damage. A person with this injury might experience some pain and stiffness for a few weeks, but long-term paralysis would be medically impossible." "Then why did Mr. Thompson claim he couldn't walk?" the DA asked. "Because he chose not to walk. The security footage from the hospital shows him moving normally when he believed he was unobserved. That's not consistent with any genuine medical condition." Griffin's cross-examination tried to plant seeds of doubt. "Doctor, isn't it possible that Mr. Thompson was experiencing genuine psychological paralysis? Conversion disorder is extremely rare, and it doesn't present the way Mr. Thompson's case did. Patients with conversion disorder show inconsistent symptoms, and their condition typically improves over time, especially with therapy. Mr. Thompson's symptoms were remarkably consistent for 5 years, which suggests conscious control rather than unconscious psychological manifestation." Next came the security footage. The jury watched in silence as Derek walked through hospital hallways, met Vanessa in therapy rooms, moved with complete normalcy. I watched their faces, saw the shock and disgust register. Derek's mother gasped audibly when the video showed him dancing in the therapy room with Vanessa. Then came the footage from my hidden cameras. Derek exercising at 3 in the morning. Derek standing to reach things on high shelves. Derek talking on the phone about his plans to leave the country with Vanessa. "I'm so tired of this act," Derek's voice said on the recording. "But it's almost over. Once we get to Mexico, I can stop pretending." The jury was riveted. Several of them shot looks at Derek, their expressions hardening. On day 2 of the trial, I took the stand. I'd been dreading this moment, but when I sat in the witness box and looked out at the courtroom, I felt a strange sense of calm. Chen approached with a gentle smile. "Mrs. Thompson, can you tell the jury about your marriage to Derek Thompson?" I did, starting from the beginning. How we'd met at a friend's party 7 years ago. How charming Derek had been. How he'd proposed after a year of dating. Our wedding had been small but beautiful. I'd been happy. "What happened after the accident?" Chen asked. "Everything changed. Derek told me he couldn't feel his legs, couldn't move them. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. I reorganized my entire life to care for him. I quit my job, stayed home, became his full-time caregiver. Can you describe what that caregiving involved?" I listed it all. The bathing, the dressing, the feeding, the medication management, the physical therapy sessions, the doctor's appointments, the sleepless nights, the constant vigilance. The jury listened with growing sympathy. "And during this time, did you have any suspicion that Derek might not be truly paralyzed?" "None. He was completely convincing. I trusted him absolutely." "When did that change?" "When Dr. Harrison showed me the security footage from the hospital. Even then, I didn't want to believe it. I installed cameras in my own home because I needed to see it with my own eyes before I could accept that my husband had been lying to me for 5 years. Chin introduced the photographs of me from 5 years ago compared to recent photos. The difference was shocking even to me. In the old photos I looked vibrant, healthy, happy. In the recent ones I looked haggard and worn. What did Derek's deception cost you, Mrs. Thompson? Everything, I said quietly. My career. My health. My relationships with friends and family. My trust in people. 5 years of my life that I'll never get back. Griffin's cross-examination was aggressive. He tried to paint me as a bitter, vengeful woman who'd never truly loved Derek. Isn't it true that you and Derek had marital problems before the accident? All marriages have moments of difficulty. But no, we didn't have serious problems. Isn't it true that you resented having to care for him? I was exhausted and stressed, but I never resented caring for someone I thought was genuinely ill. I resent being lied to and manipulated. You've sued my client for $8 million. Isn't this really just about money? No. This is about justice. The money is compensation for what was stolen from me, but I'd give it all back if I could have those 5 years returned. Griffin tried several more approaches, but I remained steady. Attorney Brooks had prepared me well. The most dramatic moment came when Vanessa took the stand. She'd pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges and was testifying as part of her sentencing agreement, though she'd received no reduction in her sentence for cooperating. Miss Torres, Deachin said, how did you become involved with Derek Thompson? Vanessa's voice was quiet but clear. I was assigned as his physical therapist shortly after his accident. The injury was minor, but Derek told me he wanted to pretend it was serious. He said he was tired of his life, tired of working, tired of responsibilities. He asked me to help him fake paralysis. And you agreed? Yes. Derek and I had started an affair by that point. I was young and stupid and believed I was in love with him. He convinced me that insurance companies had plenty of money, that no one would really get hurt. Did you know about Mrs. Thompson during this time? Yes. Derek told me his marriage was essentially over, that Naomi was just going through the motions. He made her sound cold and distant. But that was a lie. I met Naomi many times during therapy sessions. She was devoted to Derek. She loved him completely. And we betrayed her. The jury hung on every word. Vanessa described the planning, the coordination, the lies they'd maintained for 5 years. She detailed how Derek would practice his paralyzed act, how they'd communicate secretly, how they'd plan to eventually take the stolen money and run away together. Derek knew exactly what he was doing, she concluded. There was no mental illness, no confusion. He made deliberate choices every day for 5 years. Griffin tried to discredit her testimony, suggesting she was lying to get revenge on Derek for ending their relationship. But Vanessa held firm. I'm not testifying for revenge, she said. I'm testifying because it's the truth, and because what we did was wrong. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Expert witnesses testified on both sides. Derek's psychologist claimed he showed signs of conversion disorder. Our psychologist demolished that claim, pointing out that Derek's behavior showed clear planning and intent inconsistent with any genuine psychological condition. Finally, it was Derek's turn to testify. I watched him take the stand, still moving carefully as if his body pained him. Under Griffin's questioning, Derek spun a tale of trauma and confusion. He claimed he genuinely believed he was paralyzed, that his mind had created the symptoms to protect him from psychological pain. I know Naomi thinks I lied to her, he said, his voice breaking. But I was sick. I didn't understand what was happening to me. Then D.A. Chin stood for cross-examination. She was merciless. Mr. Thompson, you testified that you genuinely believed you were paralyzed. But the security footage shows you walking normally dozens of times. How do you explain that? I don't remember those times. It must have been during episodes when my condition temporarily improved. Episodes that conveniently happened only when you thought no one was watching? I don't know. I can't explain it. Chin introduced the recordings of Derek's phone calls with Vanessa, where he explicitly discussed faking paralysis. She showed the jury Derek's blog post soliciting donations for paralysis research that went into his own pocket. She presented evidence of the medications Derek had been selling, the disability equipment he'd claimed to need but never used. By the time she finished, Derek's story had been shredded. He sat in the witness box looking small and defeated, his lies exposed for everyone to see. The closing arguments were powerful on both sides. Griffin pleaded for mercy, claiming Derek needed treatment, not prison. D.A. Chin called for justice, reminding the jury of every person with real disabilities who'd been harmed by Derek's fraud. Derek Thompson stole from all of us, she said. From his wife. From insurance companies. From taxpayers. From people who genuinely need disability support. He deserves to face the full consequences of his crimes. The jury deliberated for 3 days. 3 agonizing days of waiting, wondering, hoping. Finally the call came. Verdict reached. We assembled in the courtroom, the tension thick enough to cut. Derek sat at the defense table, his face pale. I sat behind the prosecution table, Simone on one side and Attorney Brooks on the other. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Martinez asked. We have, Your Honor, the foreperson said, standing. On the charge of disability fraud, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the charge of insurance fraud, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. 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 Every single charge. Derek's mother sobbed. His sister put her face in her hands. Derek himself sat motionless, staring straight ahead. Judge Martinez set sentencing for 2 weeks out. Derek was remanded into custody immediately, his bail revoked. As they led him away in handcuffs, Derek turned to look at me one last time. I met his gaze without flinching. No sympathy. No regret. Just cold satisfaction. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. DHN gave a statement about justice being served. I said only a few words. I'm grateful to the jury for seeing the truth. Derek Thompson is finally facing consequences for his actions. That evening, Gabriel texted me congratulations and an invitation to dinner. I accepted. We met at a quiet restaurant and for the first time in weeks, we talked about something other than the trial. Art, life, the future. You're incredible, Gabriel said over dessert. The strength you showed through all of this. I just did what I had to do. Most people would have given up. Would have accepted a settlement. You fought for justice. I fought for myself. Maybe for the first time in my life. He smiled. I like this version of Naomi Thompson. So do I admitted. So do I. The sentencing hearing arrived on a bright Tuesday morning 3 weeks after the verdict. I sat in the same courtroom where Derek had been convicted, wearing a green dress that made me feel powerful and new. The gallery was full again, reporters and observers eager to see how this story would end. Derek was brought in wearing his orange jumpsuit, his wrists cuffed. He looked thinner than before, his face gaunt. Prison was already taking its toll. Judge Martinez entered and the room fell silent. Mr. Thompson, she began, looking at Derek with cold eyes, you have been convicted of multiple counts of fraud. Before I impose sentence, I want to make clear that I find your actions particularly reprehensible. You didn't just steal money. You stole 5 years of your wife's life. You manipulated the healthcare system, abused the trust of medical professionals, and took resources away from people with genuine disabilities. She reviewed the sentencing guidelines, the aggravating factors, the lack of genuine remorse Derek had shown throughout the trial. I hereby sentence you to 12 years in federal prison on the fraud charges, to be served consecutively. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $300,000 to the various insurance companies and government agencies you defrauded. You are also subject to the judgment in the civil case brought by your wife. 12 years. Derek would be 46 when he got out. His mother wailed from the gallery. Vanessa's sentencing followed immediately after. She received 6 years, with credit for cooperation and genuine remorse shown during the trial. Miss Torres, Judge Martinez said, while your cooperation was noted, your actions were still egregious. You violated the trust placed in you as a medical professional. You enabled and participated in a cruel deception. 6 years is the minimum I can justify given the circumstances. As they led both Derek and Vanessa away, I felt a weight lift from my chest. It was over. Actually over. Outside the courthouse, I gave a final statement to the press. Today justice was served. I'm grateful to Judge Martinez, to the jury, and to everyone who supported me through this ordeal. Now I'm looking forward to moving on with my life. Attorney Brooks filed the final paperwork for the civil case that afternoon. Between the criminal restitution and the civil judgment, Derek owed me over $5 million. He'd never be able to pay it all, but his bankruptcy filing had been denied, and we'd be able to seize whatever assets we could find. More importantly, I'd won. Completely and totally. That evening, Simone threw a small celebration at her apartment. Just family and close friends. People who'd supported me through the darkest times. To Naomi, Simone said, raising her glass. The strongest person I know. To new beginnings, I countered. We drank champagne and ate good food and laughed. Real laughter, not the hollow sound that had echoed through my life for the past 5 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. Congratulations. The gallery opening is this Saturday. Your triumph should be celebrated properly. The gallery opening. In all the chaos of the trial, I'd almost forgotten about the art show. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Gabriel and his team had framed my pieces beautifully, each one mounted on the white gallery walls with perfect lighting. My name appeared on the promotional materials, Naomi Thompson, Emergence. Saturday evening arrived and I stood in the gallery wearing a bright blue cocktail dress, my hair styled professionally for the first time in years, watching people examine my work. Critics circulated, making notes. Collectors asked questions. Other artists congratulated me. It felt surreal, like stepping into a life I'd only dreamed about. This piece is extraordinary, a woman in a red suit said, standing in front of Emergence, the abstract design I'd created during the darkest days. The emotion is palpable. Thank you, I said. It was a difficult time. The best art comes from difficult times, she replied. I'd like to purchase it if it's available. I glanced at Gabriel, who nodded with a smile. It's available. By the end of the evening, 6 of my 10 pieces had sold. 6 pieces. The gallery would take their commission, but I'd still walk away with over $40,000. More than the money, though, was the validation. People valued my work. Saw beauty in what I'd created. Recognized my talent. After the last guest left, Gabriel and I stood alone in the gallery, surrounded by the remaining pieces. You did it, he said softly. We did it. You took a chance on an unknown designer. Not unknown. Just overlooked. But the world sees you now, Naomi. He stepped closer, and I realized how much I'd come to care about this man who'd believed in me when I barely believed in myself. Can I take you to dinner? He asked. To celebrate properly? I'd like that. We went to an upscale Italian restaurant, sitting at a corner table with candlelight and wine. For the first time in years I felt like myself. Not Derek's caregiver. Not a victim. Just Naomi. Tell me about your dreams, Gabriel said over pasta. Now that you're free, what do you want to do? I thought about it. I want to build a real design studio. Take on bigger clients. Maybe teach workshops for young designers. I want to help people the way I wish someone had helped me. That's beautiful. You should do it. What about you? What are your dreams? He smiled. I want to discover more artists like you. People with raw talent who just need someone to believe in them. And personally? He paused, his eyes meeting mine. I want to spend time with someone who inspires me. My heart beat faster. That sounds nice. Over the next few months, my life transformed in ways I'd never imagined possible. I rented a small office space and officially launched Naomi Thompson Design Studio. My first major client was a tech startup that needed complete brand development. The project was challenging and exciting, pushing my skills in new directions. Word spread about my work. More clients came. I hired an assistant, a recent college graduate named Jennifer who reminded me of my younger self. The gallery show had been so successful that Gabriel invited me to participate in a group exhibition at a larger venue. My work appeared alongside established artists and I held my own. Financially, things stabilized. Between my design work and the art sales, I was earning more than I had at my old firm. The civil judgment against Derek brought in some money as his assets were liquidated, though he'd hidden much of what he'd stolen. More important than money was the healing. I continued therapy with Dr. Reynolds, working through the trauma and rebuilding my sense of self. The nightmares faded. The intrusive thoughts became less frequent. Slowly I learned to trust again. Gabriel and I grew closer, our relationship developing naturally from friendship into something deeper. He was patient, understanding that I needed time to trust someone romantically again. We took things slow, building a foundation of respect and genuine connection. I'm not Derek, he said one evening when I apologized for being cautious. You don't have to explain yourself to me. We move at whatever pace feels right for you. 6 months after the trial, I attended a fundraiser for disability rights. I'd been invited to speak about my experience and the importance of protecting disability programs from fraud. Standing at the podium, looking out at the audience of advocates and people with real disabilities, I felt the weight of responsibility. Derek Thompson's fraud didn't just hurt me, I said. It hurt everyone who depends on disability support. His lies made it harder for people with genuine needs to get help. His actions reinforced harmful stereotypes about disability fraud being widespread, when in reality it's rare. I'm committed to using my experience to advocate for better protections for disability programs and the people who need them. The speech was well received. Afterward, several disability rights organizations asked me to join their boards or participate in advocacy work. I said yes to the ones that aligned with my values, determined to turn my painful experience into something positive. A year after the trial, I attended Vanessa's parole hearing. I'd been asked if I wanted to submit a victim impact statement, and after much consideration, I decided to appear in person. Vanessa looked different again. Prison had changed her. She'd aged hardened. But when she saw me walk in, something shifted in her expression. Shame maybe. Or regret. I gave my statement to the parole board, explaining the harm Vanessa's actions had caused, the lives she damaged through her participation in Derek's scheme. However, I concluded, I also believe in redemption. Vanessa cooperated with the investigation and testified truthfully at trial. She served 3 years of her sentence. If the board believes she's genuinely remorseful and rehabilitated, I won't oppose her parole. Vanessa was granted parole, though with strict conditions. As she was led away, she mouthed thank you to me. I nodded once. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement that she'd taken some responsibility for her actions. Derek, on the other hand, showed no remorse. He filed multiple appeals, all of which were denied. He sent me letters from prison, alternating between begging for forgiveness and making threats. I gave them all to my lawyer and never responded. Simone met someone, a lawyer from her firm named Brandon. I watched their relationship develop with happiness for my sister. She'd stood by me through everything. She deserved joy. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Simone and I went shopping for furniture for my new apartment. I'd moved out of the house I'd shared with Derek, unable to live there with all the memories. The new place was smaller, but it was mine. Bright and open, with space for a home office where I could work on design projects. This couch, Simone said, sitting on a burgundy sectional. This is the one. It's expensive. So, you can afford it now. And you deserve nice things, Naomi. She was right. I deserved nice things. I deserved a beautiful home. I deserved happiness. We bought the couch, along with artwork for the walls and plants for the balcony, transforming the empty apartment into a home. That evening, Gabriel came over to help me assemble furniture. We worked together, talking and laughing, making the space ours. Not his, not mine, but shared. I have something to ask you, he said as we collapsed on the new couch, exhausted but satisfied. What's that? There's an art residency in Italy. 3 months in Florence, working with international artists. They've invited me to cure it. And I want you to come with me. My heart skipped. Italy? I know it's a big ask. You have your business here, your life. But Naomi, imagine 3 months in Florence. Creating art, building your portfolio, experiencing a new culture. And doing it all together. I thought about the Naomi who'd existed 2 years ago. That woman would have said no immediately, too afraid to take risks, too trapped by circumstances to even dream of such opportunities. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Yes, I said. Let's go to Italy. Gabriel's face lit up. He pulled me close and I let myself sink into his embrace, feeling safe and happy and free. Later that night, after Gabriel had gone home, I stood on my balcony looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Derek was in a prison cell, living with the consequences of his choices. Vanessa was trying to rebuild her shattered life. And I was here, in my own apartment, planning a trip to Italy with a man who respected and valued me. I'd reclaimed my life. Piece by piece, day by day, I'd taken back everything Derek had stolen. And this was just the beginning. The morning I left for Italy, Simone drove me to the airport. We sat in the car for a few minutes before I had to go through security, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. 3 months, she said. That's a long time. I'll call you every week. We'll video chat. You won't even notice I'm gone. I'll notice. She squeezed my hand. But I'm so happy for you, Naomi. You deserve this adventure. At the terminal, Gabriel waited with both our bags and matching excited smiles. The flight to Florence was long but comfortable. We talked for hours about the residency, about art, about life. Somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, I realized I was genuinely happy. Not just content or recovering, but actually happy. Florence exceeded every expectation. The residency program placed us in a converted villa on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by olive groves and rolling hills. My studio space was flooded with natural light, perfect for working on new designs. I threw myself into creation with an energy I'd forgotten I possessed. The Italian landscape inspired me, the colors and textures and ancient beauty finding their way into my work. I designed a new series focused on rebirth and transformation, pulling from my own experience but universalizing it into something others could connect with. Gabriel curated an exhibition featuring my work alongside 5 other international artists. The opening took place in a prestigious gallery in the heart of Florence, with critics and collectors from across Europe attending. "Your pieces are remarkable," a French collector said, studying my latest design. "Such raw emotion coupled with technical mastery. I'd like to represent your work in Paris." Paris. Another door opening. But the best part of Italy wasn't the professional success. It was the personal growth. I learned to trust again, to be vulnerable again, to let someone care for me without fear of betrayal. Gabriel was patient and kind, never pushing, always supporting. One evening, we sat on the villa's terrace watching the sunset paint the Tuscan hills in shades of gold and red and purple. Gabriel poured wine and we clinked glasses. "To Naomi Thompson," he said. "The strongest, most talented, most beautiful woman I know." "To new beginnings," I replied. "Actually," he said, setting down his glass, "I want to talk about new beginnings." Something in his tone made my heart race. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I know we haven't been together that long," he began. "And I know you've been through trauma that makes this complicated. But Naomi, I love you. I want to build a life with you. No pressure, no expectations, just possibilities." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring with a single diamond. Beautiful and elegant, nothing like the ostentatious ring Derek had given me all those years ago. "I'm not asking you to marry me," Gabriel continued. "Not yet. This is a promise ring. A promise that I'm serious about us, about our future. Whenever you're ready, whatever that looks like, I'll be here." Tears streamed down my face. Happy tears. "Gabriel? You don't have to answer now. Take your time. Think about it." "Yes," I said. "I don't need time." "Yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger, and I felt a rightness I'd never experienced before. This was what partnership was supposed to feel like. Equal. Respectful. Built on truth and trust. We spent the rest of the evening planning our future. Not rushing into anything but dreaming together about possibilities. Maybe I'd open a studio in Italy. Maybe Gabriel would expand his gallery to multiple locations. Maybe we'd split our time between continents. The 3 months in Italy flew by. When it was time to return home, I felt both sad to leave and excited to implement everything I'd learned. Back in the States, my business exploded. The Paris collector followed through on representing my work in Europe. My design clients multiplied. I hired 2 more employees and moved into a larger office space. Gabriel opened a second gallery location, this one focused specifically on emerging designers and digital artists. I helped him curate the inaugural exhibition, blending my design expertise with his curatorial vision. On a Tuesday afternoon 2 years after Derek's sentencing, I received a letter from the prison. Derek was requesting to add me to his approved visitor list. He'd written a note asking me to come see him, claiming he'd found religion and wanted to apologize in person. I read the letter once, then put it in a drawer. No response needed. Derek could find religion or whatever else he wanted, but I had no interest in hearing his apologies. That chapter of my life was closed. That same week, I spoke at a conference for survivors of financial and emotional abuse. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of people who'd experienced similar traumas, I shared my story. "Recovery isn't linear," I told them. "Some days will be hard. You'll doubt yourself, question whether you're strong enough to rebuild. But you are. I promise you are. I went from being trapped in a lie to building a life beyond my wildest dreams. If I can do it, so can you." The standing ovation that followed moved me to tears. After the speech, dozens of people approached me to share their own stories, to thank me for giving them hope. This became my new calling. Design was my career, but advocacy was my purpose. I started a foundation to support survivors of fraud and emotional abuse, using a portion of the settlement money from Derek's case to fund it. We provided legal assistance, therapy resources, and financial counseling to people trying to rebuild their lives after betrayal. Simone joined the foundation's board, using her legal expertise to help survivors navigate the justice system. Brandon, now her fiancé, recruited other lawyers to provide pro bono services. On a perfect spring day 3 years after the trial, Gabriel and I got married. Not a big wedding, just close friends and family in a garden ceremony. I wore a red dress, bright and bold. Simone was my maid of honor. Gabriel's sister served as his best woman. As I said my vows, I thought about the difference between this marriage and my first one. This time, I knew exactly who I was marrying. This time, the foundation was built on honesty and respect. This time, I was choosing partnership as a whole person, not trying to complete myself through someone else. I promise to build a life with you as equals, I said to Gabriel. To support your dreams as you support mine. To be honest even when it's hard. To choose us every day. I promise to see you, value you, and celebrate you, Gabriel responded. To be your partner, not your caretaker or your project. To build something real and lasting together. The reception was joyful and light. Dancing under string lights, laughing with friends, celebrating not just our marriage but the life I'd rebuilt from ashes. Derek sent a letter that day too. My sister intercepted it and threw it away without telling me until weeks later. You don't need his poison on your wedding day, she said when she finally mentioned it. She was right. 5 years after Derek's conviction, I published a book. Emergence. My journey from deception to freedom, told my story in full detail, but also provided resources for other survivors. It became a bestseller not because people were interested in scandal, but because so many had experienced similar betrayals and needed to know they could survive. I did a book tour, speaking at universities, community centers, and conferences. The stories I heard from readers confirmed that Derek's abuse wasn't unique. Too many people had been gaslit, manipulated, trapped by partners who claimed to love them. But I also heard stories of recovery. Of people who'd left their abusers, rebuilt their lives, found happiness again. Each story reinforced my belief that healing was possible. Gabriel and I bought a house together. A real home with a yard for the garden I'd always wanted and a studio space where I could work. We adopted a dog, a rescue named Honey who followed me everywhere with devoted eyes. Life was good. Better than good. I'd built a career I loved, a marriage based on respect, a home filled with light and laughter. The foundation was helping hundreds of survivors annually. My art was shown in galleries across 3 continents. On the 5th anniversary of Derek's sentencing, I visited the disability rights organization I'd started working with. They'd invited me to receive an award for my advocacy work. Standing on that stage accepting the plaque, I looked out at the audience. People with real disabilities who'd fought for their rights. Advocates who worked tirelessly to protect vulnerable populations. Survivors who'd overcome their own betrayals. 5 years ago I was a victim, I said. Derek Thompson had stolen my career, my confidence, my very identity. But I refused to stay a victim. I fought back. I sought justice. And I used my experience to help others. That's what I encourage all of you to do. Take your pain and transform it into purpose. Take your trauma and turn it into triumph. We are survivors. We are warriors. We are stronger than anything that tried to break us. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. I'm in a situation like you were, she said quietly. My partner claims he can't work because of an injury, but I've seen him doing things that don't match his story. I don't know what to do. I took her hands in mine. Document everything. Talk to a lawyer. Trust your instincts. And know that whatever you decide, you deserve better than lies. I gave her my foundation's contact information and watched her walk away with a little more strength in her step. That evening, Gabriel and I hosted a dinner party at our home. Simone and Brandon were there, engaged in a playful argument about wedding planning. My college friends from the design firm attended, now colleagues in my expanding business. Dr. Reynolds came, having become a friend as well as a therapist. Gabriel raised his glass for a toast. To Naomi, who taught me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every single time. To all of us, I countered. To second chances and new beginnings. To choosing happiness every single day. As we ate and laughed and celebrated, I felt a contentment I'd never known was possible. Yes, Derek had stolen 5 years of my life. But I'd taken the remaining years and made them extraordinary. I turned my pain into purpose. My trauma into triumph. My past into a platform to help others. The sun set through our dining room windows, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. Honey dozed at my feet. Gabriel's hand found mine under the table. Simone was laughing at something Brandon said. This was my life now. Not perfect but real. Not untouched by pain but strengthened by surviving it. Not defined by what was done to me but by who I chose to become. I was Naomi Thompson. Designer. Artist. Advocate. Survivor. Wife. Friend. Sister. I was free. And I was happy. 5 years ago, a doctor had told me to call the police. That call had changed everything. It had torn apart my world, forced me to confront terrible truths, pushed me through the hardest journey of my life. But it had also set me free. Derek had tried to bury me under 5 years of lies. He tried to make me small, weak, dependent. Instead, I'd risen. Stronger. Braver. More myself than I'd ever been. The revenge had been sweet. Watching Derek face justice, seeing Vanessa lose her career, winning the legal battles. But the real victory wasn't about them at all. The real victory was this: sitting in my own home, surrounded by people who loved me, living a life I'd built with my own hands. Derek was in prison. Vanessa was working minimum wage jobs, her medical license permanently revoked. And I was here, thriving. That was the sweetest revenge of all. Not what they lost, but what I gained. My phone buzzed with a text from a new client, a major corporation wanting to redesign their entire brand identity. The biggest project I'd ever been offered. I smiled and set the phone aside. I'd respond tomorrow. Tonight was for celebrating life, love, and the future I'd fought so hard to create. Gabriel squeezed my hand and I squeezed back. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far I've come. How grateful I am. How excited I am for what's next." What is next? I looked around the table at the people I loved, at the life I'd built, at the possibilities stretching out before me like an open road. "Everything," I said. "Everything is next." And I meant it. The end.